part two. I got cut off. I don't know why. Maybe YouTube just giving me so much time since I'm just getting started with this. But this is a continuation on why should your kids be freaking afraid to go to school, scared to death, because of school lockdowns and shootings that occur that make the schools now implement one more type of safety mechanism for the kids and stuff. So I stopped where they said no school is exempt from school lockdown. Isn't that something? Your kids is not exempt from it. Not unless you keep them out of school. Not unless you don't allow them to attend that day. But you never know when the school is gonna have a lockdown like that. It's gonna have schools drilling for tornadoes and fires. Those things are gonna happen, but you don't know when the school is gonna have a lockdown. To train the kids to be safe, just in case some massacre comes through there trying to shoot up everybody. That is another reason to pull your goddamn kids out of the public schools and homeschool them yourself. I bet you get way more benefit out of homeschooling them than sending them to a public school who are not protecting them. Not just that, they don't protect them, they don't care about them. They don't even report the things that's happening in the black community educational system. They don't care, they don't report it, they don't track it. So the only people that they're really tracking as being affected is the people that don't look like us. So it's something to think about. Homeschooling your kids, I bet you it's cheaper. I bet you wouldn't need daycare because you have kids old enough to be at home to take care of the other kids. Just got to figure out what the law is. It says that a 13-year-old can be at home with however many siblings, as long as they're the age of 5, 6, 7, and 8. It's beneficial. I bet you would save a few dollars besides trying to pay $1,000 for a daycare center, trying to take care of your kid for you being the substitute mama because that kid is at the daycare for 8 and 10 hours a day. I bet you there's a whole nother way of looking at that. Well, like I said, your kids are not exempt, okay? They're not exempt from fire drills and tornado drills and lockdown, not unless they miss that day coincidentally. Come on now. But as I went on reading the article, while most kids won't suffer long-term consequences, experts who specialize in trauma suspect that a meaningful percentage will. So who knows? It just says meaningful. It doesn't say 80%, 60%, 40%, because they use the trickery words to trick you. So if you got a class of 30 kids in a classroom or 20 kids in a classroom, you probably need to know that 99% of those kids are affected. Because we're all humans. We're all humans. Some kids are oblivious and will just go over their head. They haven't connected the dots yet, which is fine. But most kids in the world that we live in today, they fucking know what's going on. So you can't just be downplaying them because they little people. Some of these little people got way more common sense than big fucking people. I'm just saying. This guy named Steve Scholosman said that this is a clear and pressing public health issue. Steve said that this is a clear and pressing public health issue, especially in the black community. Wonder where the hell these guns come from. Who's dropping them off in the community? Why these kids, the frontal lobe hasn't totally developed, so they don't have a rational way of thinking because they're not totally equipped up in here to do so, but to put a gun in a young kid's hand. And they shoot up not just schools, but black communities. So there's a double whammy right there. That's like genociding to the highest of the highest. So again, let's go back and touch bases on what we talked about. We talked about the kids being scared to death. 4 million kids being traumatized. We ain't even included the kids that's in states and cities like Detroit and Chicago, Illinois, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., wherever there's a whole mass of black people. Those kids are not even being, this is not making the news, and they're not even tracking the incidents that's going on in their community or their schools. That's bullshit. Lockdowns is creating psychological damage to children. And according to the article that's on the Washington Post, written by Stephen, Richard, and John Woodruff Cox, these are long-term detrimental issues these kids are going to deal with. But there was a psychiatrist that totally got involved and said that these are pressing public health issues. Come on, people. We got to treat the kids much better. They are the future. They can't be. This is kind of like a third war that's going on in their head. You don't ask your kids in the morning, are you afraid to go to school? I mean, they got a phone in their hand. They kind of know what's going on. They're reading about what's happening. Get the fuck out of here. You need to ask your kids, do you feel unsafe when you go to school? Are you thinking on your way to school the possibility of there being some sort of mass shooting, or somebody just wielding a knife, or somebody trying to set a fire, or someone leaving bombs? All of these things are a factor in creating trauma to children. And nobody's talking about the trauma that's being created in these kids. And I think it's time that people start talking about the trauma that's being created in young people who have to grow up and become adults. And when they do, and since they may not get these traumas dealt with in a proper way, they may grow up and create more trauma because they were already traumatized. So how do you fix the problem? Because it is a problem, and it's a big problem in the black community. It is a huge problem. It's a double-edged sword in the black community. They're just not shooting at the schools. Goddamn it, they shooting at in the fucking communities too. So there's like no fucking way of getting away from it. People, are we serious? We're just gonna ignore the fact that there's 4 million plus kids walking around here traumatized before they even get up to go to school in the morning. They traumatized when they ride the bus. They traumatized when they walk in the hallway. They traumatized when they hear shit drop. They traumatized if the teacher look concerned because